Be
I think the
curious.
audience will be curious.
Audience would be curious.
Yeah.
Okay, back to the topic. All right. So we gotta start from a very chill question.
Sure.
So talking about drink, like alcohol. So what's your drink of choice?
Usually old-fashioned, I would say.
You look like an old-fashioned guy, actually.
I think I sometimes can be. Not always the case.
No, like very classy, very like raw in a sense.
I would say I sometimes can be too corporate, but not necessarily classic.
We can see by how you're dressed too.
Well, I
Like,
mean,
so
I came from work
professional.
today, so that's
Oh.
normally how I wear and how I dress up to work.
Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. All right, getting to the drink of choice. What's your drink of choice?
I don't like beer. So
No beer?
I like some cocktail, like
Okay.
made of mix of things. It's very fresh, and then yeah.
Mix of things is so suspicious. Like you're like, as long as it's not beer, I'm good with everything. For me, I guess it's something more refreshing, as you said, like I don't know, like a martini, but a refreshing version. Like something that doesn't taste like alcohol much. I guess I had this drink also one time called Tokyo iced tea or something. It's like it's with vodka or whiskey. I guess it was vodka, but it tastes very refreshing. So nice, so nice.
I don't normally drink though. I only drink if I have a commitment. Then I typically drink. I don't usually drink myself though.
Same.
Staying healthy.
Work culture.
All right, so let's get to the main questions. Do you want to introduce yourself to the audience?
Yes. Hello everyone. My name is Richard Shuai. I graduated from the University of Toronto in 2024, and now I am an analyst working at Restaurant Brands International, the holding company of Tim Hortons, Burger King, Popeyes, and Firehouse Subs. And I'm doing my 2-year rotational leadership development program.
That's pretty cool. Do you want to also mention any fun facts if you're interested?
Any fun facts? I would say maybe sometimes people wouldn't think that I'm this tall. So my height sometimes can be pretty surprising for people who meet me for the first time, especially
You're actually tall.
right? Sometimes this can be actually quite surprising for people. I came from China. I moved to Canada 2021. So I actually came here not very early. So this can also sometimes be surprising at work for people who, firstly, know me.
You have a good accent, so
We have something to share. You know Richard's last name, and if it translates to it means like handsome.
Yes, it is. In Mandarin, character Shuai is like, the
Yeah.
word for handsome, good-looking guy. But, if I do business in China, then people can easily know me and remember me because of this last name. But that's
Okay.
no longer a plus in Canada because, people don't know that.
well, you can introduce yourself as Richard the Handsome.
Well, I can try.
Yeah. Okay, guys, know him as the Richard the Handsome.
Thank you so much.
All right. Do you want to go for it?
All right, yeah. Should I go to the next question? Yeah. All right, yeah. So we're kind of curious, and then we know you when you were undergrad, and then so how has your life changed since graduating and starting full-time work, and what should people prepare once they graduate?
Great question. I still live in Toronto, live in downtown Toronto. I would say currently I am much relaxed. I have more free time for my hobbies. During undergrad, I didn't really have lots of time for myself. I was doing extracurriculars. I was leading a large, student organization. I was doing part-time jobs. I served on multiple governance committees on campus. So really didn't have much time for myself and really figure out what I want to do outside of work. But now I have plenty of time. So I started to play badminton. I recently hired a coach to teach me how to play that. So I want to be better. At the same time, I have more time for travel, more time for go to other places in GTA and just have fun. Explore different restaurants and yeah.
By the way,
Life has
for
been good.
viewers, GTA is not the game. All right, it's the Greater Toronto area.
Yes.
Yeah. GTA 6 shout out hasn't been out yet.
Yeah. So in terms of transition from university life to a professional life, I would say, really figure out what you want to do because we have limited time. And when you start working full time, you have a full time job, right? And how you invest your time and money that you make by yourself outside of work can be really important. How you want to spend the time left. So I am pretty hardworking, so I spend a lot of time on work, but I also want to make sure I have time for my friends and families and hobbies and take care of myself.
That's a really good thing to keep the balance of. Also, I'm like kind of surprised when you said like you started picking up badminton and stuff like that.
Yes, I start picking
You
that
don't
up.
give off the vibe that you do other stuff but work. But also, I didn't have that much of an interaction with you. But based on my interactions with you, I was like, okay, this guy is like all about work, all in work.
Well, I mean, I like working. I did work a lot in undergrad, yes, because I came here late. So within a relatively short period of time, I had to learn the Canadian culture, get to know the professional space, workplace, really get to know and figure out a path for me to be able to get a job here and be able to really like understand the culture and do well in workplace.
That's very interesting. I want to get a little bit more into like your current experience because you work technically in supply chain and
Yes.
areas related to that. I wanted to ask for especially those viewers who don't have any idea about this, like tell us more about it and like what do you do? How does it feel like?
Yeah. So prior going to this, topic of supply chain, wanted to give a little bit of background of the program. So rotational program, you're going to do rotation in different corporate functions. So when it comes to business career, people usually think about consulting or banking. So in consumer companies, they typically have a rotational program. Some companies call them management trainee. We call them LDP, leadership development program. So in that program, you're going to rotate in different functions one by one. Sometimes you don't even know where you're going to be at. So for me, I was placed under supply chain for Tim Hortons CPG business. So CPG is consumer packaged goods. For example, coffee pods, coffee powder that you're going to see grocery store, Loblaws or Walmart. That's where we do our business. So I am doing supply chain, for this business, and that's been a good experience so far.
Yeah.
So if you want to learn more about supply chain, I can also shed some light if you're curious. So supply chain in short definition is to moving your products from point A to point B. And then you have to manage the risks and complexities along this way. So things like geopolitics, transportation, shipping costs. You have to manage the increasing cost of raw materials, commodities, pricing. You have to manage through different vendors, your distribution network. So it's to make sure things can be moved from A to B in a safe and effective way. That's about supply chain. So when you work in a consumer company, you have a lot of products to move, and then you have to do planning, forecast, make sure you have the right quantity, and you manage production to make sure you produce enough quantity, and then you move them safely to the place where they have to go.
I'm kind of curious one more.
Sure.
Like, I mean, it's a supply chain. How does a tariff hit?
Tariff hit, I mean, definitely, if you think about some of the production that you currently have in Canada,
Yeah.
and you're selling these products in the US. So definitely that's something we work on a daily basis. Probably the executive team, they definitely, need to learn more about tariffs and, the impact on, trading partnerships and so on.
Yeah, that was a very interesting question because there is a lot of uncertainties in the whole process.
Yes.
And like planning for all of those, like even no matter how much you plan, I assume that eventually you get surprises once in a while.
Yes.
So like knowing how to deal with that is like something that I guess people can learn more about from your perspective. Like how do you like plan for those uncertainties that you don't even know they exist until they start existing?
Yeah, that's a pretty high level question. I'm relatively junior in this space. What I can tell is when you want to deal with the complexities behind, we need to explore different supply chain models. Some models can be can be cheaper. Some models can be, harder to execute. Some models can be associated with or involve multiple parties. So you have to manage different parties to make sure something can flow from point A to point B. So there's different models of supply chain to consider, and we do a lot of analysis on how much each cost, the security, how stable they are, any other risk factors, and then we present them to leadership to decide. So it's definitely a holistic conversation. We need to consider multiple, factors and so on.
I kind of have a question.
Yes.
So we actually all graduates, and then
Mm-hmm.
I just graduated yesterday,
Yeah.
and I'm kind of curious. When I join a company, can I even see my own impact? Because I know the company is so huge, and I don't know my own, the factors I play in. Like, what do you think?
Great question. So first of all, congrats on your graduation. It's a big moment for you. So congratulations on that. In terms of impact, first of all, finding a good platform, namely a good company, is very, very important. Whether it's from my earlier experience with my student club, so UTMIST, as you probably know, to my current employer, it's very important to have a good company culture that encourages young people to take initiatives, take some sort of career risks, and to try something new. The company has a culture, then young people can really do something big. We don't have to worry about we're too junior, we have no impact. We can deliver great impact if we do a good job. So the company has to encourage that. And then for junior employees, it's always good to touch on some cross-functional space. For example, I'm from supply chain, but I have to work with sales team, brand team, quality assurance team, guest services, different other teams. I have to learn how they function. And then I can bring some learnings into my job on how I can empower and support their job. Because it's very important for us to deliver impact and to align with different cross-functional teams. So then we can truly deliver impact when it comes to changes or process improvements, a transformational project, where you want to find some cost efficiencies. It's important to have buy-in and alignment from different teams. So it's so important to learn about their teams and to build a good relationship with them. And then here's impact.
That's very interesting. I kind of like joined UTMIS basically after you joined it, like you were the president, or kind of like you resigned. And since you mentioned UTMIS, I guess it's a great transition to ask about this, because everyone I talk to says credits you basically with revival of UTMIS, and everyone says that, oh,
Oh,
before
wow.
Richard,
Revival.
UTMIS
I
was
like that
dead. They
word.
were they were
Okay.
going down, but like he came back and UTMIS is on top now after
Okay.
that. I wanted to see how that happened. Like, tell us what was in your mind. What did you do to do that?
Yeah. Oh my God, that's a really great question. Thank you for the appreciative words.
It was not my words, by the way. It's everyone's
Oh, but
words.
yeah.
Yeah.
I graduated, so I didn't resign, but I graduated from the university. So I kind of, kind of left my co-president position then. So for revival, I would say the most important thing that I did was to make sure our strategic priorities are clear. You have to have a very clear strategy on which direction you are going. So, for example, making the club much larger, scaling up all the events, hiring a lot of team members, growing your social media, that can be a direction for growth. Some people may want to build a club where there's more research innovation, more research project, having a more elite culture for knowledge and research. That's another direction. Some people may want to build a club where it's more diverse. They highlight on diversity. They want to, so every leader has different direction. Now, the number one thing I did was to make sure our direction was clear, so people know where we're going. That's so important, to make sure we lay out a strategic framework on these are the priorities, these are where we're going. So for me, my priorities were really, first of all, really scaling up our events, having large milestone events so people can easily remember our name or brand. And then in order to do that, number two, building the best in class marketing team or marketing results. So, and then third is to grow future leaders, is to really build a strong talent pipeline. So when I leave the position, someone else can take the spot and can even do better. So I do feel like people should evaluate my success not only just by how I did in the position, but how my successors are doing, and they're doing well. And in order to deliver that, build a strong team, that can align with the direction. If you want to upscale your events, you need to hire people who know about event management. You need to hire people who understand operations and logistics, understand catering, understand marketing, understand social media. You need to find people who know how to do that. And then you can deliver your strategic direction or your goals.
I really can connect with what you say. I work with Richard like very closely under marketing. I also share last episode like how's my interview stage
Yeah.
goes with the UTMIST. Very rough, very scary in the beginning. But I remember I remember my kind of one of the tasks is to work on the LinkedIn, and then Richard gave us like really clear say, oh,
Yeah.
this by this end of the month we or this end of semester we should hit this number specifically, and then once we hit it's actually really great, and then it does grow like very
Hmm.
very
Yeah, that's a really great example of goal setting. So, by the way, for context, when I was co-president, I was also head of marketing. So I did not name a new VP marketing to replace me, which can be a controversial decision then. So when I was leading marketing, we also set department level goals. Growing LinkedIn account was definitely one of the most important priorities for marketing. We had a strong Instagram account when I was VP marketing for the first year. And then by then we had, when I started, we had only 930 followers. When I left the position, Instagram, it's 3,000 plus. So for a student organization at U of T, that's a huge growth. And then I started to look at what about our LinkedIn, platform, because we want to have a professional presence. We want to make UTMIST not only a fun, chill, student community, but we also want to have a pretty good professional presence. People sometimes underestimate the importance of marketing. They think marketing is, it's about social media. You can sell more tickets for a conference. You can have more followers. More importantly, when you're looking for sponsors and new partnerships with external partners, or if you want to work with other large clubs, they look at your social media. It's so important to have a strong social media presence. And for LinkedIn, it really represents, the professionalism, our values, innovation, and our good people celebrate their accomplishments and highlights. So we invested a lot of time and energy into growing our LinkedIn account. So we had about three 3,000 followers on LinkedIn these days, thanks to all their hard work.
yeah. I also want to bring up another point. I remember I joined other student clubs as well. I think a
Yeah.
lot of leaders they probably aren't that clear of what that club can grow in the future, or like what's your goal setting is.
Yeah.
But I think like during Richard's time he actually spent a lot of like meetings to tell us how's the like this club structures like a company and then tell us different teams, and even though we're like non-engineer background, non-computer science background, none like maybe some other teams, we can also get to know each other's. I know that's a lot of team, like I barely know anybody from the academic team, and like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
that's how you close the barriers and bring people closer. And I think like Richard spent a lot of time to make this club being very transparent and making the structure like pretty well pretty. Oh, I remember you mentioned before, you said, oh, isn't like this is a too structured or like should it be very structured
Yeah,
or
personally,
yeah.
I like having structure, and for UTMIST then, it was clear that we need to have good transparency because we have 200 plus internal members. They all came in through interviews. It's very hard to pass along messages and let them know what's going on in the club. So what we did was I sent a lot of memos. So everyone will receive my email updating what's going on in the club. We do some community building events to make sure they're aware. And also, our team structure is aligned with the direction that I'm proposing. So we have to make sure the organizational structure can support your strategic direction. And then we did that. So we want everyone know this, kind of new way of structuring the club. So then we also did a lot of communication, to make sure people are aware. Yeah. And then the rest is history.
Yep. Now UTMIS is the biggest ML club in North America.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's what I've
Yeah.
been told. Fact check that.
Thanks for letting me know. Very nice.
Yeah. But at the same time, I also heard that you had a very tough leadership.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I mean, maybe it's one of the reasons that people think that way is that you give a lot of responsibilities to people and hold them accountable. But I do personally think that that's very necessary for, at least in the beginning of any organization, if you want to revive an organization or create one.
Yeah.
Like most of the leaders that I've seen, okay, like the example that I usually give, I compare you to Steve Jobs in a sense.
No way. No way.
Because of like
We shouldn't say that. No,
Yeah.
no way.
Okay, not
He's
not
my role
exact.
model. He's
Ooh.
you know, he is. I would say probably the role model for many people working, working in industry, whether it's business or technology or anything, product related.
Yeah.
He is a marketing genius, a leadership genius. I sometimes tell people like we need to learn from him in a sense that when you really care about something, you should tell people. If they don't deliver your expectation, you should also let them know. In a polite way, of course. But being demanding itself isn't a bad word for leader, I believe. So, from my own humble experience and understanding of leadership then, was that when you propose a direction, you need to set goals and then you need to make sure your team can deliver these goals. So be results oriented. So I care a lot about, so we do monthly reporting about our marketing performance. I make sure every department head, every VP needs to do sort of debrief to share their accomplishments and their highlights. So these initiatives can be seen as demanding, high requirements, high demand. But at the same time, it really kind of concentrate us as a team. It really help us to concentrate as a team and really help us to deliver tangible results at the end of every month and of course at the end of this year to deliver tangible results. And in terms of leadership, I would say because you care so much and then you will organically behave in a way that you want something to be so good. So that's probably why. But as I'm working in a junior position in a in corporate world, I think it's important to express something in a more in a more polite and also in a more in a more accessible way. So I learned to do a lot of back channeling before I propose something new or something surprising. I try to hear from people what they think. I try to hear from their fresh perspective, sometimes different perspective. I look at all ranges of data to make sure my decision is based on science and models and so on. And it's important to have a pretty comfortable team culture so then people can feel psychologically safe to share different perspective. So I learned to do that in my current job. And I feel like it's so important. You can be tough and demanding, but you can also be caring. You can also be humble. You can also be open-minded. These don't conflict. That's probably the most important takeaway from my corporate life so far.
I think also a lot of people in their leadership position, and then sometimes when they are kind of have a disagreement with the team members or something, they can't really provide the evidence behind their judgments or decisions. Like for you, probably sometimes you tell us this thing or that thing can be better, or why'd you do that? You always provide like the evidence behind it that make us like be more understanding.
Yeah.
It's not just like, oh, I don't like this and that's it.
I would say
So-
for most of the time, yes. Especially in marketing, you really have to make decisions based on data, based on performance, based on how you did in the past. That's definitely something we need to take into consideration. At the same time, listen to different perspectives from people. Like I said, I think that's just so critical for a leader to succeed, for any kind of leader to succeed.
That's a fair point. I'm kind of curious since you mentioned now you're in a junior position
Yeah.
and you were leader before and all those things. How is the experience in being a junior person? Like, has there been situations that you were like, I wouldn't have done that if I was like leading?
Oh,
this
no.
session or
I feel
stuff?
like there's so many things that are transferable from my leading a student organization, being pretty active and sort of having a lot of positions on campus, to working on a junior role. One is I care. That's probably the most important quality I would say is I deeply care about what I do. Everything I do, whether it's an assignment from my boss or it's like a new direction we're giving or a new initiative, I make sure I put my hand, heart, and head into it. I really spend time into it. So that's transferable. Whatever level you're at, you can have that mindset, like ownership mindset in a corporate language. That's ownership mindset, sense of strong ownership. You can have that in a junior position. You can have that in a senior position. I do believe that for senior leaders, that's a mandatory requirement to have that sense of ownership. Even if you're not the owner, but you still have to have that very strong sense of ownership and care about what you're doing. So that's transferable, number one. I think a lot of the organizational skills are super transferable. When I was in undergrad, I not only did this club, I did so many other committees where, extracurriculars, part-times. So juggling priorities and managing my time, so transferable because in supply chain, you also have many lines of fresh responsibilities. Sometimes you have like, something really urgent come up, or you have, just many lines of, responsibilities to handle. And for me, especially, I work in the CPG business. It's a unique, independent entity, like a unique business within Tim Hortons umbrella. So we operate like a startup, even if we are under a big corporation model. So I do several things. So I have to really manage time properly. I would say, last but not least, the skill of professional communication, I would say. So in writing or in speaking. So when I was leading UTMIST, I organized a lot of meetings. It's so important to run a meeting versus attending a meeting. Probably you can also relate to this, right? When you're organizing a host a meeting, you have to prepare agenda. You have to do your homework, make sure you really understand what's going on, know your stuff, right? And then you have to invite the right people, knowing their background, doing some prior research before coming to the meeting, and then you have to host the meeting, you have to facilitate, right? You have to speak up, and then you have to summarize action items. So I did that in undergrad, and then I'm now doing this, in my current company too, because I learned to do that as a really great, probably a great practice to lead a meeting. So I really appreciate my prior experience, so I kind of have that skill.
I actually experienced that approach first-handed. The
Mm-hmm.
meeting that we had, that you were trying to solve UTMIS like problem as like an advisor.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, when you entered the meeting, initially you started asking people a lot of questions. And then
Yes.
one thing that kind of surprised me is that you're kind of good at understanding what's a noise and what's an important piece of data. So
Mm-hmm.
you wouldn't let people just to talk like on and on without
Yeah,
like,
like root cause analysis, figure out what's the core underlying demand,
yeah.
what's the underlying rationale, the root cause.
Yeah. So you would cut the conversations and would be like, okay, that's fine, but like, what about this? Like, you would guide the
Mm-hmm.
conversation. And also at the end, you basically brought up a couple of examples related to the situation and gave us some direction that I think it would be better for you to do this and this and this. So that was kind of
Mm-hmm.
surprising, the way that your mind was like organized and was thinking about this problem, because a random person's like approach would have been, not a random person but like a regular person's approach, even like good students
Mm-hmm.
and stuff, would have been to just talk to everyone, see how they feel, how they think, and like at the end ask everyone's opinion in a sense, and like,
Well, because my role was to give some advice. So I'm not a decision maker. That's why I feel like the decision maker will do that at the end, to go to each one and hear their perspective. My role is just based on my own experience with the organization. As a retired co-president, give some sort of advice. So it's a bit different.
yeah, but still the way that
Hmm.
you were thinking through this was kind of interesting
Thank
to
you.
me.
Hmm.
All right, we can move on. Um, which fun question?
Oh, all of them are fine. You can
Oh,
go.
okay, okay. Um, okay. So this is kind of like a discussion for three of us,
Sure.
since we're all 20-ish.
Hmm.
And then what do we think people in their 20s should be? And then if you have any role model, as you mentioned earlier, like who do we look up to?
Well, be themselves. I think that's very important. Just be genuine, be yourself. How do you guys think?
Ah, darn, I'm just 22. uh, I think in people's 20s,
Yeah.
I remember I watched so many videos. They say, oh, in your 20s, you shouldn't think about how much money you earn. You should think about how many experience you're built up, and then how many people you're like have connected. And then for me, I think in people in their 20s should be trying to be risky and then being creative, and then don't
Mm-hmm.
think too much like, oh, I should support my family in this way or something. Just try to see many sides of yourself. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's a those are good points. In my experience, I guess one of the most important thing in 20s is that you are not supposed to be accomplished yet, because there's always this perception that, oh, you should have figured out everything, you should have like earned this much money, you should have like done this or that. And like especially 20s is like, this is the period that you're just done with school, and like up until the end of the school everyone had a similar path, everyone had to go through same classes, but suddenly everyone like goes to do their own thing. So if you're like, you have a bunch of different friends with different interests, suddenly you see someone is going and traveling all the world, someone is doing like a PhD or something in a really good school, someone is working, someone has their own business, everything all at once. And like you're seeing all of these different like aspects of life, and you're like, okay, I should go do this direction, or now I should do this, and you compare yourself with one aspect of so many people's lives. And then that causes you that to think that, oh, I haven't done anything in my life. But I guess it kind of is connected to what you mentioned, like be yourself. Just like I think the best approach is to try to compare yourself with yourself and like try to figure out what you want to do. It's fine if you haven't figured it out yet, in a sense.
Yes, I definitely agree. So life is a marathon, right? We don't have to rush to get there. It's good to have a long-term goal or like a huge ambition, but we don't have to rush to get there. So in my free time, spare time, I watch a lot of CEO interviews where, these politicians, businessmen, both from China and also in North America. I can share some takeaways from these really powerful people. One of them is don't run for office. This was actually quite surprising when I first heard, because we may think that these powerful people, when they were young, they were like super ambitious, they were like super calculated about where they were going. Actually, based on what they shared, that's not the case. What they are sharing with the audience is you don't have to do one job in order to do another job. Focus on what you're given and do that job very, very well. And then opportunities will come. And then you don't have to run for office every time, say, I want to do this just because of, I want to do that next. And that's a really sort of like a short-term mindset, which is not what they recommend. So based on my own experience, I can definitely feel that. In undergrad, a lot of the opportunities came up by themselves. So even for UTMIST, by the way, for context, I had a major in psychology. I did not have a background in computer science or engineering or AI or anything like that. So when I was leading the marketing team for UTMIST, I was focused on doing marketing very, very well. I was focused on this job that I was given and do that so well. Try your 100%. So, and you will realize that your role will be expanded over time, because your leader always wants you to deliver more, and they will give you more, whether it's more projects, more people to lead, more budget. It grows over time, step by step. So I first, at the beginning, I took over marketing media. And then when we deliver good results in our club fair, I started to lead club level communication. I started to lead the sponsorship package. I started to play a larger role in club level management, operations. I gave some sort of recommendations on how the talent structure can work. You start to play a larger role in the organization over time. You don't have to rush to get there. So for me, the co-president opportunity came up by its own. I initially didn't run for this opportunity. People would come to you like, you have done such a wonderful job, you know the club so well, you know every department, and you should take the job. That's also the case for my part-time job. I was food ambassador at Trinity College, one of the college under arts and science. Yeah. And then I was focused on doing that job so well. And then my earlier supervisor, she signed me back to another contract part-time job in my 4th year of undergrad. Yeah. So that's a better job because it's more stable. I'm a staff. I went to office. That opportunity came up by themselves. I didn't run for that job. So sometimes when you do something very well, even for today's opportunity, right? So you would invite me here because I had something impressive. So same for my current job at Tim Hortons. It's so important to do the current job so well, and then you will be seen.
Basically
People will
build
notice
their
that.
reputation.
Yes, personal brand, reputation, people will notice because people also want you to move up for the interest of the organization, for the interest of the larger team. They want you to move up and do well. So that's a very important takeaway I learned from these like TV mentors, the CEOs. Another takeaway I would say is never say no. You don't have to say I only want to do this, because this is actually shared by a really famous, well-known CEO in the automotive industry. She's the first female CEO in the space, and then she shared like working along your career journey is like it's like a tree. You start with a bigger branch, and then you're going through the specialization process and get to a narrow, you narrow down your focus, you narrow down your skill sets, and then you go to a branch. Don't cut the branch too early. You never know. For me, I did psychology. I did an internship in marketing, in category marketing at the same company. And then I thought, I did marketing at the club. I thought I was going to do marketing for life. But now I'm in supply chain. And I can tell you, I'll probably go to finance next year. So you never know. When opportunity come up, you never know, right? So just don't say no too early. Explore different possibilities. Like what Kaylin said, explore different options. Try them out and let's see. So I feel like in our early 20s, 20s or even 30s, always just try something new. Just don't cut down these tree branches so early, especially in life or career.
I have one more thing to share as well.
Yeah.
Like, kind of two things. When you mention like
Yeah.
do well or excel well in one area, I remember I read a bibliography a few months ago. It's written by it's called Ina Garden, and her book name is called "Be Ready When the Luck Happens."
Yes,
So that's kind of like reflects on what you said.
exactly.
It's not like a luck, but you work hard and you create luck.
Yes.
And you have to be ready to transit. And yeah.
Yes, because opportunities and promotions don't come up often.
Yeah.
It's so important to be ready when something come up.
Yeah. And another thing I want to share also, like, I mean, you guys or all of us are very have a lot of opinions. I think people in their 20s should be also bring up a lot of like questions and then ask them and then be very opinions, maybe catching. I remember when I was, when Richard was still in school, he told me to read news just in your any like spare time, just read news, catching up with the like what happening in the world. I think is super important. And then, yeah, just through the news, you can have more opinions about the matters that actually happened, and then I think it's super important for people in their 20s especially. Yeah. Anyways, yeah. Well,
Great takeaway.
Yeah, thank you for sharing as well. Kind of like another question is come back to UTMIST actually.
Okay.
But it's about yourself. It's like what aspects of your experience with UTMIST have carried over into your current roles or your current lives?
Yeah, mindset, the attitude. I deeply care. Some people may say like, we're not actual owners of the company. They're like employees. So the way we work may different. For me, it's the same. And I also bring a pretty genuine kind of way of presenting myself. Like the way you see me at work, the way you see me doing student clubs, the way you see me in live playing badminton, they're consistent. I make sure I bring my true self to work. And then I deeply care. Because when you really care about something, when you really have that sense of ownership, the way you work would be different. You will organically find so many opportunities to grow the business. You will find cost efficiencies. You will find gaps. You will find new consumer demands. You will find something interesting to implement and to pilot. You will naturally find something if you bring a strong sense of ownership, like this is your own company, this is your own business. You will have that mindset. And you will be more cautious with risks because you have to consider the holistic view. You will be, so that's very important, I think. Definitely carried over from UTMIST to RBI to Tim Hortons. And, the organizational aspect, professional aspect, I would say these are probably something I definitely carried over, can be highly transferable from my club experience to the current actual, work experience.
Do you ever try Tim Hortons stuff?
Yes, of course.
What's your favorite drink and pastry?
Yes. So pastry, honey cooler. We had a really strong baked goods, portfolio. So I think all these donuts are nice. From
Okay.
a beverage perspective, I want to share something about CPG. So we launched Brew Over Ice. So we launched Brew Over Ice in grocery. I'm not talking about the drinks you can buy in store because they're already good and they're already famous. In grocery at Walmart or Loblaws, you can buy Tim Hortons coffee, whether it's instant coffee, a jar of instant coffee, or a large can of coffee powder, or our K cups. You really can buy these products from grocery and then you can try them out. We recently launched iced coffee in grocery, so you can make your instant iced coffee without the need to buy a machine, and you can make it make them at home. That's how we define Tim's at home is really to bring the brand love to consumers home.
How about Timbits?
Timbits are nice too. When we had our events at UTMIST, we wore a lot of Timbits.
Oh yeah, we
Yeah,
have it all
definitely.
the time
Pizza,
basically.
Timbits, donuts, coffee all the time.
Does UTMIS get like discount for buying Timbits?
Oh
We
well,
bring it to a lot of meetings and people paid for like
I
from
would
their
suggest the
pocket.
future leadership team to consider this. Actually, they can feel free to work with us or to try to work with us on sponsorships and partnerships. Something definitely
That'll
we
be
can
fun.
explore.
Yeah.
What's yours?
Oh, my. I feel I feel. Okay, English second language. I feel hard to read those words. Where like I don't.
Menu items.
Yeah, menu
Say the
items.
Like
uh,
number 4.
yeah, but I always like chocolate Timbits or
Oh,
anything
okay.
chocolate. And I really
Mm-hmm.
like yuzu sparkling, blue blackberry, yuzu drink.
Yeah, the quencher, right?
The
The
quencher
quencher.
is really nice.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Try that.
super.
Try the quencher. It's
Yeah,
pretty refreshing.
Tim Hortons there, right at the
When you're
corner.
working on a consumer brand like Tim Hortons, you feel so proud because every day you work on exciting projects and everything that can be seen and be used by so many consumers in the country, across the country, that will give you a strong sense of reward and accomplishment over time.
All right. Should we jump to this? All right. Okay. Kind of
Bring them on.
curious. Okay, this is from Sina, not from me.
Sure.
He asked. He asked, "Do you become friends with unsuccessful people?"
Of course. What do you mean?
No, basically my thoughts was that
You need to
imagine
be friends with all types of people.
no. Okay. The reason I brought up this question is because the discussion came up with one of my other friends. And it's not like about the people who you already know, but like when you want to like find new people as friends or something, if they don't have like the correct mindset or something, do you want
What do you mean
to?
correct? There's no correct mindset. There is the
Okay.
most suitable mindset for themselves.
Yeah, but like something that
Uh-huh.
you truly think that is worthwhile. Like for example, one of the things that I guess
Yeah.
you value is to putting 100% of your like effort into something, or
Oh,
maybe hard work in a sense.
that's not necessarily the case for making friends.
Yeah.
That's how I see my career.
Yeah.
That's how I define my own path. Different people have different perspectives on how or where they want to grow in their career and life. They have different life priorities. So therefore, they have different perspectives on different things. I think people need friends. I have friends from all different backgrounds. You need friends for your hobbies, friends for professional development, of course, friends from your college experience, friends for food. You need some foodie friends.
Friends for food.
You need all these type of friends. I feel like there's no single answer to say like what's the model of a friend. A friend can mean so many different things.
No
That's how I
friends with-
see it.
Okay.
Of course,
fair.
I mean, there are some values that I hope to kind of align, but it doesn't mean like I need to be friends with people who are like me. It's not necessarily like that.
Yeah, one of the reasons that at least for me I do care about when I make new friends is that I do want the other person to have a passion for something. Like I realize that if whenever I hang out with people who
Yeah.
have zero passion for anything, it doesn't really matter. It can be like for video games, it can be for
Yeah.
food, it can be for anything. But like people who don't have passion for anything, I kind of feel like it's hard to hang out with them. Like if they're like, oh, just let the life just go by.
I think they must be passionate for something. They just haven't explored and figured out that yet. Maybe, okay, for me myself, I did 1.5 years in physics and math and some statistics. When I was applying for university back in my high school, I was sort of determined that I'm going to do physics and science for life. It is until my undergrad at U of T when I started to get to work with some student clubs. I also started as a junior member at the beginning, right? I was a graphic designer for some clubs. So, and then I realized that my passion can be in management, and so that's something I figured out during along the way. A passion for operations, a passion for management, for business. So I feel like people are going to be passionate for something. They may just not know that yet. Maybe they're not aware of their strength or their passions. And that can be figured out by trying different experiences, by trying different positions, whether it's professionally or socially or academically. Just try different things.
That's
And
possible.
by the way, universities in North America really provide us with that framework because you can take electives, you can select your own majors and minors, or any combinations of programs. That gives you the foundation to try different things.
Yeah, I guess it's a little bit easier to find your passion here. How about you? Do you become friends with anyone or not really?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I don't become friends with anyone, but like being friendly in the beginning, it's definitely the key. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
everybody be very friendly, but along the way, I kind of like deselect some of my friends.
Mm-hmm.
The
Oh,
unsuccessful ones? No,
no,
I'm
like
kidding.
not communicate in the same way.
Mhm.
Like maybe someone's really talking really deep. Like every
Mm-hmm.
time I met, it's like, oh, it's super deep conversation makes me really like painful in my head. That's something like I feel, that's kind of tiring. I just want to talk
Mm-hmm.
some chill stuff. But sometimes when you meet somebody, they're like only talking about the chill stuff. Then you feel like, oh, what about the the deep parts? Like
Mm-hmm.
so kind of selects people who can communicate in a really similar way. That's one way I deal with. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And people can change. People
Yeah.
can really change. Like your life priorities can change, how you behave can change. Everything can change. And I personally don't like the word like unsuccessful. Like how do you define success, right? Like different people have different ways of defining success, right? So I feel like everyone can be successful in their own, in their own space if they have their passion. If they find that passion, they can always succeed. It's just a matter of time.
Yeah, yeah. No, fair enough. No, I'm personally, I don't judge people based on the amount of success that they have and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It's mostly about like their passion in a sense and somewhat of a mindset, especially if we click or not, as you mentioned.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, that was just a random question that I brought up because some people do have that type of mindset that they're like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
if you don't hit a certain like base limit, I
Yeah.
don't want to even talk to you or waste my time.
Yeah, I
So I was
think
just kind of
Yeah, I think
curious.
in undergrad or for new grad, especially in business school, people care a lot about the first job that you have. I know I have some friends who one of them he runs a car rental company now. I mean, after graduation. I have friends who do social media full time. Some of them enter into a big corporation after undergrad and then shortly after they quit and they start their own company. So everyone has different like life, right? Like life choices. For a lot of graduates, it is true that people want to get into a sort of like a glowing, good job, having a good job title, especially when it comes to large companies, whether it's technology companies or so on, especially with the rise of AI, people want to work in these big firms. But at the same time, different people have their own path, right? You don't have to work in these companies to be able to make money. There are so many ways that you can invest in your money. You can do your personal investments. You can do so many things in life that can give you a wonderful life or quality life overall. Working in big corporations, it may not be the best route for for everyone. That's how I see it.
Yeah, that's very fair. And I do like diverse group of friends too.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's because like if there's only tech people around me, they
Mm-hmm.
just start talking about AI, and sometimes I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
enough with the AI talk. Let's talk about food or something.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so
Yeah. I also so our next question is kind of about like how do you manage so many connection, but you kind of like already touched on it.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you can just wrap it up and then yeah.
Connections.
Yeah, how do you manage so many
Well, I
connections?
mean, we need to go to meet people. One thing I did realize, you were asking about life transition from undergrad to professional life. I feel like currently I no longer go to as many events or as many socials as I did in undergrad. In undergrad, I was pretty like I had probably a reception every other day. I have like so many events to talk to people, to meet new people from all ages and also from all walks of life. I feel like now when I start working in a corporate world, you have 9 to 5, right? Sometimes even more than that. So I think I should probably continue going to these events and just to meet people. And then you have to find people who you like, who you have the good chemistry with and stay in touch with them.
Mhm.
You know, whether it's birthday or some relevant, events. I mean, I have a badminton group, so we play every week. I also have some sort of friends who we kind of go professional relationships. So we kind of, we make a phone call every other month just to kind of catch up on their professional life, what they're doing, everything about their job and their company. So we do have, so I have friends like that too, right? And, so it's just important to keep in touch and be active to learn about their experience and their stories.
Mhm. Last but not least,
Hmm.
what's the most random event everybody joined before?
Random event,
Most random.
the most random event, everybody
No,
joins.
you have joined.
I have joined the most random event.
Or what do you think, Sina?
ooh, I should think about it. I joined so many random events in the past year,
Okay,
and that's even how I found about UTMIST and met you
okay,
there first
yeah.
in Eigen AI, basically. But what is the most weirdest one? Hmm.
Okay, a hint. I can remember it, but I know
Huh.
some Eventbrite they post some like a large scale of
Yeah.
escape room
Escape room,
in
okay.
the city on the
They're
streets.
fun. Escape rooms are pretty nice places, I
Hmm.
would say. I've been to a few in Toronto,
Okay.
a few more in China, but yeah, a few in Toronto too.
I heard the ones in China are
Hmm.
more fun.
Yes, because sometimes you
Escape.
have, yeah, it's not just a floor. You have to climb. Sometimes you
Hmm.
have to jump. You have to, bow down to find something. There's just more physical activities in
That'll
these
be
rooms
fun.
in China, relatively, I mean.
Imagine six of you get in and only five get out. No, I'm kidding. Oh, one of those events that I'm kind of curious to one time go to because I've seen so many of them, but it's like I was like, it sounds a little bit suspicious. Is
Okay.
those like speed dating events? I'm like, what do they
Speed
even
dating.
do?
I wanted
Yeah.
to share something similar, actually.
Ooh.
That
Okay.
was a cultural shock when I first came to Canada. At my college, we had Conversat.
Mm.
Conversat is a formal dinner plus some after party, some sort of dance party. By looking at the name Conversat, I thought it was like a professional networking event. I didn't know.
Hmm.
I had no idea about what this event will be like. I didn't Google myself. I just signed up.
Yeah.
So I also didn't know like I have to bring a partner
Mm.
or like a close friend. Because Conversat means it's partnership and you have to engage with some conversations between two people. That was a culture shock for me when I first came to Canada. We didn't have those events back in the days. So that was new to me by then. So I didn't bring anyone. I was prepared for a networking mindset going to the event.
You brought your resume.
Well, not necessarily resume, but I was
I'm kidding.
prepared to add LinkedIn for sure. Definitely, that was a culture shock. So I would say that was probably the most random event that I've been to. Yeah.
I guess like it's kind of like going to prom without a partner in a sense.
Yes.
That might have been
Yeah.
awkward.
Yes.
It is pretty awkward. It was pretty awkward then.
Yeah. I was ganging up with my girls.
But LinkedIn sometimes works. Like one time we went to a club and like one of my friends like
Mhm.
brought up the LinkedIn QR codes
Oh my
on
god.
top of her head, and she was like, "Oh, people can add me."
I know. I mean,
I
yeah.
was so goofy. I was like, "That's
Mhm.
crazy."
Oh, that's wild.
All right.
Yep. All right. So I guess that's it for today's episode. The camera didn't die this time, so shout out camera.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me. My pleasure.
Thank you for coming. And was this podcast what you expected?
Yes, interesting conversation.
Okay.
Interesting conversation. I think we touched on so many topics. I think it's definitely a great experience. Thank you for hosting.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Should we say the last word?
Oh, like subscribe. Okay. So we usually do this like at the end. That's on count of 3, 2, 1. You do subscribe. So,
Sure.
All right. 3,
3,
2,
1.
1.
Subscribe.